to order the March 4th, 2025 meeting of Benton Harbor Planning Commission. Will you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Adams,
Present.
Commissioner Archibald, Commissioner Bell, Commissioner Henry, Commissioner Hensel,
Present.
Commissioner Marshall, Manager Little, and Chairman Reed. You have a quorum.
At this time, we will have approval of the minutes. Any additions, deletions, or changes? Hearing none, I make a motion for the approval of the minutes. Support is by Commissioner Archibald. Would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Archibald,
Yes.
Commissioner Bell, Commissioner Hensel,
Yes.
Manager Little,
Yes.
Commissioner Adams,
Yes.
Chairman Reed.
Yes. At this time, we'll turn the meeting over for public comments. Anyone in the audience would like to make any comments? Hearing none, I'll close this portion of the meeting. We'll go right into old business. This time, we'd like to present a zoning ordinance update. Mr. Bradley, Commissioner from Kenham.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chairman Reed. Appreciate it very much. We can go ahead and pull this up. Okay, thank you. So I don't have an overly long presentation for you tonight, but I do want to talk about where we are related to the draft zoning ordinance, talk to you a little bit about the status of the draft zoning map, talk a little bit about some additional zoning considerations that I think that the Plan Commission maybe want to consider a little bit further, and then obviously talk about next steps as we're working towards trying to get to a formal hearing for adoption of the zoning ordinance and zoning map. At this point, as you know, there has been a full draft of the updated ordinance. It's been prepared and it is under review. Some of the key goals of the ordinance preparation, starting with the master plan. We want to make sure that the ordinance is really reinforcing the recommendations and the objectives of the master plan. So that's one of the key goals for the document. Other things, we're updating the ordinance so that it will be graphically rich, and we'll have consolidated use tables and classifications. And it is our hope that it will be much easier to use. It'll be newly formatted with clear administration procedures. Some of the key issues, and this is a very distilled list, but our consideration of smaller lots and reduced setbacks to encourage residential uses throughout the city. As we all know, that there are quite a few smaller lots throughout the city, so I think that's something that needs to be addressed very specifically. New site development standards to encourage a variety of housing types. That's something that's very key for the ordinance. Of course, review of signage, landscaping, lighting, and other key development standards are also paramount. Further, the ordinance seeks to promote a mix of uses and implement best zoning practices. The ordinance also seeks to preserve waterfront areas and respect areas for open space and recreation. And again, ensure that processes and procedures are easy to understand. So those are all the primary goals of the ordinance, notwithstanding the substantive issues that I know that the Planning Commission has been talking about over the last year, and that we've been talking about since I've come onto the project, and that we'll continue to talk about leading up to the formal adoption of the zoning ordinance. In terms of the draft zoning map, a full draft of the zoning map has been prepared. As you're aware, the map does create zoning districts citywide, and the map is identifying areas for residential, commercial, industrial, mixed use, recreation. The map along with the zoning districts, will allow for increased housing opportunities, will increase local serving commercial area nodes and near residential, and again, preservation of waterfront areas. So some additional zoning considerations, and I think this is a bit of what I'd like to discuss and get some input from the Planning Commission here this evening. We talked a little bit about parking. Parking is one of those topics that is a challenge for any community. Oftentimes what you'll find is that parking sometimes is the driver of development because the parking standards are so onerous. You end up putting so much parking on a lot that the design and architecture and site planning becomes secondary. So you want to sort of balance that concept. So the question around whether or not the ordinance should allow for reduced parking standards is key. And in my opinion, professional opinion, I think that helps promote desirable land uses and design. Small lots, we talked a little bit about that. So talking about zoning provisions to allow for the potential to create reduced standards such as setbacks, lot coverage, other things that would help promote housing or other uses on smaller lots. Now, getting down to what is defined as a smaller lot, that's something that is worthy of consideration, but the idea is to help allow flexibility in the code. The next thing is to ensure that the new zoning addresses legal nonconforming uses. So we want to make sure that there's no unintended consequences by adoption of any new zoning ordinance. So you want to talk about whether or not certain uses will have a prolonged life if they become legal nonconforming. What would be the standards for their removal or abandonment? And so that's another key concept. Also, the promotion of smaller housing and accessory dwelling units and other residential types that, because of their design, may be lesser expensive out there in the market than typical residential design. So, the question becomes do we want to have provisions that promote small homes and accessory dwelling units? And I put this one on its own slide because it's worthy of that, for sure. Another consideration is certainly the downtown, right? How do you create a dynamic downtown that promotes culture, arts, innovation, small local businesses, residential opportunities, infrastructure and street network improvements, and placemaking opportunities for the local community? As we talked a bit with the PC subcommittee, I think that this is an issue that perhaps could transcend just traditional zoning and may be worthy of a much deeper dive in the form of either an area plan or maybe even a specific plan. So something for consideration from the Planning Commission this evening. Other goals for what the ordinance should be is aligned, again, to reinforce the master plan. The ordinance definitely needs to be compliant with the Michigan Planning Enabling Act, and we'll ensure that is compliant. Again, we want to establish that consistency with the master plan, and also should be a tool that will help preserve and enhance neighborhoods and will be a comprehensive update. So the entire ordinance will be looked at anew. In terms of next steps, right? So we need to continue to ensure that all land use policies have been addressed in the draft that you have. So that's going to take some continued work and review. We need to ensure full quality control and graphics review of the document so that when you have a final document, it is the absolute best document that McKenna can produce for the community based on your input. So in my opinion, we do need to continue working at the PC subcommittee level to finalize that draft zoning ordinance and the map. And then once we've done that work, we need to go through the proper public noticing procedures for getting ready for a presentation of the full draft to the Planning Commission, and this body would then make a recommendation to City Commission. Now, when we get ready for the draft, the presentation at the full Planning Commission of the draft, there would be a full outline of all the sections that have been changed, what has occurred, It'll probably be a lengthy evening. It will be somewhat of a deep dive into looking at that ordinance, and I'm going to try to synthesize that down into very key topics as we go through the ordinance, all the different chapters, all the different sections. If it becomes apparent that another meeting is needed, we can certainly accommodate for that, but at this moment, we're planning for one thorough review of the draft ordinance, possibly in April. I think we'll know more once the PC subcommittee meets one more time to continue with the work on the draft zoning ordinance. And then, so at the end of that next planning commission meeting, if the commission is feeling comfortable that the ordinance has been fully addressed, that the standards are appropriate, that we've left no rocks unturned, you'd go ahead and make a recommendation that we forward this on to the city commission, and then we would schedule that properly as well, and we'd have a full public hearing there for final adoption. Now, that would come in the form of the actual ordinance adoption, so I'll be looking to work with city attorney perhaps on just getting everything properly put together in the ordinance format. And with that, that is the update. I have the updated zoning map that I can pull up onto the screen. We can take a look at tonight. I have the actual ordinance if there's some sections you want to take a look at. I have a number of documents that could aid in our discussion. But that is the update for now, and the next step again is after your discussion here this evening is getting that next PC subcommittee working group meeting scheduled as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Just quickly.
Sure.
I'm sorry. You mentioned that you would be getting with City Manager Little. My question, what role does the Legislative Committee play with the overall finalization?
And you're talking about the entire planning commission as a whole?
No, the City Legislative Committee meeting that usually also works with ordinances as well.
It's a committee of the city commission.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we've got several of them that meet at different times.
And we can certainly, if that is a step in the process that I wasn't aware of, absolutely, we can work with them if that's needed, certainly.
Just speaking as legislative chair for almost 8 years, I would love to be privy to know this information, but maybe the other chair does, and I don't know.
I'll definitely look into that and know for sure.
Dairy products.
You want to put that out, we take a closer look.
And I can also,
Careful of the board out.
Yeah, I was trying to
Okay.
say that,
Oh, okay,
Not very strong.
okay.
Bradley,
and that's is that the existing map?
put on the screen.
I do. Can I switch over to PDF?
I'm blind, so.
Oh, there we go. Oh. Okay. So on the screen, we have the latest, the most recent version of the zoning map, and I can enhance this. And just for the Planning Commission's record too, I was able to have a conversation also with Dane Rasmussen from the city about making sure that we're capturing parks and waterfront areas. And so we've gone ahead and made some updates there to make sure that we're getting the map correct as well.
I have a question about that graphic. I know it came to me why parks and various things that are not water are marked in blue based on the legend, but is there any way to add green? Because we had also talked in the master plan about greenways, and we don't want to confuse people by lumping them all together. So if parks were green, and the water-related parks, things that are in the areas where we have water, then those obviously would remain blue.
Well, and actually, I'm glad you asked that question, because one thing that became a bit obvious too when I was speaking with Dane was that as we were looking at certain areas that were under the current zoning ordinance, public waterfront, the idea of the word public was something that we started to talk about, because there are some areas that might be green or open space that may be privately held that aren't that you might want zoned that way, that aren't public. So the question became about whether or not you wanted the word public in your waterfront areas or your park areas. So to answer your question, yes, we could create a green and do that for parks, and then for waterfront and recreation, which are sort of, akin to the blue, we could have it written that way as well.
Can you bring the area with the canal back up? So the canal
See Hinckley there?
doesn't have any public land around it, but that's an area where we would want, can you see, I know you're not that familiar with Benton Harbor, it's a dead-end waterway that comes in. It says
Right,
where Hinckley is.
Here, along here, correct? Yeah.
That
Okay.
area and that right-of-way is city-owned, the water, and there's I believe it's still 100 feet that runs through there. And so I don't know how we want to designate, when we talk about the distance from the waterfront, that we would have to do some sort of special use permit and review. That's an area where that has to be indicated.
So what I'm hearing is you're wanting that to be zoned either, probably waterfront area.
Yep,
Okay.
all along Main Street, from Main to at least 10th. I mean, from the city limits, I guess, where the point.
Is that the canal that goes behind Chemical Bank? Okay, so that's public.
The water is public, the
Right.
land is not, except that there is some land because part of the canal was filled in. And so it's still owned by the city, but it's not mapped or marked.
Okay, so is this a perfect time, through the chair, to fix something like that? Because those are questions that I asked when I first came on board in researching how was this canal cut off? But it's city-owned property. I mean, we know how it was cut off. It's like stolen land. I mean, but should it be deemed as public or privately owned? I mean, it's actually the city's property, so how can it be private?
There's
So is
just
this the time to fix that?
There's very, very little way that people can take advantage of the public land right now. But if we knew exactly where the boundaries were, there's potentially an area for a walkway along the water that could be public, but I think we're several steps away from that. And on this map, that's why I'm bringing this up, because I want us to kind of take a step, if we can, and maybe further in the sub-area plan that was just mentioned, because that's where we can dive down into those details.
And I thank you for that, because I think this is a time now that we're in to actually fix that and repossess what belonged to the city.
You would also have to go back and review your title We have to go back to see if there were any changes. For example, a lot of them are abandoned streets, for example, that may not show up on the maps. So that would be something we have to look at.
And is this something that could have caused the problem that exists right now underneath some of the buildings downtown? Because sooner or later, there's probably going to be a sinkhole, and we don't know what's going to go down if it happens. There's water that's flowing that was cut off from freely flowing where it's supposed to be flowing, and now it's flowing underneath buildings.
Those are springs, those are natural springs that have been there for over a century. And in some cases, that's why buildings were built, was to take advantage of them. A number of them have been capped off, though. Dialerite sits on top of one. And there are a couple of others that are very active.
So that's part of the problem why the water, while Hall Park has protruded outward too. And I noticed that happening when the spring over here was cut off across from the tech. Because people used to actually come and fill their water jugs up. And the then city manager, start with a W, cut it off. It was one of the aquifers. And is that something that we can discuss too within this master plan? Aquifers, because we're in trouble and we need to be trying to utilize our own resources.
I'm not sure how far we need to go back to fix the past, but right now, we're more concerned with making sure that the ordinance will reinforce the master plan. When those issues come up, then we can deal with them. And I would like to say that the planning review process can be changed in the future. This is not the, beginning and the end. This is the beginning of how we would like to proceed. And as we proceed going forward, as problems come up, then we can deal with them as we go along. But fixing things when there's no issue, I'm not sure that's where we want to spend our time.
I just say that history is important. And I used to play down there along that waterway, and it just brought about questions as to what happened.
Okay, this is an update as to where we're at right now. Our consultant is indicating that he would like to meet with the subcommittee at least one more time
Correct.
to clarify some issues.
Who is that?
Yes, the subcommittee of the Planning Commission.
Right.
Myself, Commissioner Hensel, Commissioner Amby Bell, and Commissioner Henry. And of course, we invite our consultant. And of course, the city manager is always welcome ad hoc.
Correct.
Okay.
I have another question about trails.
Okay.
There is a trail system that belongs to the public that runs through Harbor Shores, and that's not on that map.
Okay.
I don't believe it was, in 2012, it wasn't there to be part of the map. But these days, especially because we don't want to lose track of that, I think it's important to get it on the map.
Is it an easement, a series of easements? Okay.
Right.
They need to be marked. I'm sorry, okay.
The reason I'm bringing it up is that where things change, there's an opportunity if someone wanted to build a house on the trail system, it's an amenity. Even the springs that you're talking about, the reason a lot of things were here was because people used the springs for baths. So there may be a day where people are interested in that if we knew where some of those things are. you know, you might choose to buy that property for that purpose. So this can be a help for that.
Makes sense.
Okay. That's a great comment. Thank you.
Have more questions, that issues that you?
You know, if there's an appetite for, I think some of the zoning considerations I talked about, we've talked a little bit about them. We can take another deeper dive. I think what I would do in the next PC subcommittee is highlight the actual section of where I think it's addressed, and then we can talk very specifically about the language in the ordinance to see if we think it's appropriate or if it's missing the mark in some way, and then almost make that into a working session where if changes are made, we make them there and then on the spot.
Thank you. Question, so since our last meeting, there have been some changes to the map, and because we are doing an update and this is a public hearing, is it possible to just update everyone on where we are currently?
Sure. So I would, and this is going to be very general, right? But I would say that what has occurred and some of the primary changes to the map thus far have been areas that have been increased for opportunities for housing for more multi-dwellings. So that is this, and I'll pull up the legend here. You can see the RM multiple family residential. It's sort of this golder color. You can see it along along Vineyard and McCord here. You can see it over here at River and Terrace, adjacent to 9th and Colfax, between, what is that? Is that Colfax? No, Colfax and Sherman. So there's been expanded areas for that. As I was saying before, we've picked up a number of the areas along the river up here next to the Paw Paw River. There were some areas up here. Dane indicated there were some boat launch areas that we've picked up. I understand, and I apologize, I'm not getting the right name of the park. There's a little triangle park here at Empire and Pipestone. Sites. Yep, Sites, okay. Thank you. Pick that up. Then we talked a little bit about the local commercial corridors and trying to open up neighborhood commercial uses that are adjacent to the neighborhoods. So there's been an expansion of some of that local commercial along Empire and along Britain as well. And so those might be really nice areas where you could have very locally serving commercial nodes for people to walk to get a variety of goods and services there.
And Pipestone as well.
In Pipestone, yes. And we've talked, although we haven't made mapping changes, but we've talked very much about the very smaller lots. And so I did send an email earlier to the commission that I did find a provision that was drafted that acknowledges lots less than 50 feet in width and allows for reduced setbacks as a way to try to promote housing on those lots. So we can talk a little bit further about that in more detail. And the question would become, in my mind, should we open that up to other districts? Because the unintended consequence would be that if you've got smaller lots in a variety of zoning districts, would you want to have that same provision that allows for a reduction of setbacks and standards as again as a way to help promote design for residential opportunities?
Could you explain what the text says? Because some of the some of the planning commissioners weren't there at subcommittee meetings. So you can talk about maybe what we were trying to fix or do in that conversation.
Yes, so. Let me just find the section real quick.
Page 29.
Yes, I'm glad that was part of my email, correct?
Yes, I'm looking
There we go,
at
okay.
the email, yep.
So this section of the draft zoning ordinance, it starts with, I should bring that back up, I don't know why I did that. It starts with a section that's related to measurements and exceptions. So this entire zoning chapter is really getting down into the details of how you look at how you would design a development on a piece of land. So you get into things like the lot size, building separations, densities. This is really the nitty-gritty of the zoning ordinance. And one of the sections speaks specifically to setbacks, required yard setbacks. And there is a provision, and it's specifically about side yards. So measurement, right? Side yards is measured from the side or interior street property line to the closest point of a principal building. And so we have a graphic that's within the ordinance that shows an illustration of where, side yards are.
Can you enlarge that, please?
Absolutely.
Side yard, meaning side yard?
Side yard,
Your home, before another home is open in the street.
absolutely.
And the street.
And so,
Large number of narrow lots in the city, and we want to be able to build on them. So we need to know, can we modify the setbacks to make them smaller, to allow for the houses?
right. And so there's a section that was drafted that's specific to the RN district. And it's here, you can see the language, RN district, narrow lots of record. And I'll just read it verbatim. In the RN district, whenever a lot of record has a width of less than 50 feet, the side yard on each side of the building may be reduced to a width of not less than 10% of the lot width, but in no instance shall it be less than 3 feet. So on a 50-foot wide lot, you could have a building that would go all the way up to 3 feet on either side yard. So that, it does get tight, and that's absolutely true. And there would be provisions for fire separation between structures. So it would have to be designed with that in mind pursuant to the building code.
Okay. So my question becomes, are we encouraging new homeowners, renters, or whatever to go to the parks and play? Because, I mean, from what I'm hearing, there's not a lot of room for children, if someone has children, to actually have a backyard or to play on the side.
When you're looking for a house, those are the things you're going to look for
Exactly.
first. If you go in with the attitude that this is not enough space for me, then maybe that's not the house for you.
Of course. I mean, we're just talking about specific areas, though, I guess is what okay,
Right.
okay.
This was one of the things that came up, and Mr. Little really emphasized that we have a large number of narrow lots in certain part of the city. So if they are not going to join the lots to make a larger lot, then we still can build on them if we have the proper permission for the setbacks.
That makes sense.
And I think that goes very much along with, you may read this about what some communities are dealing with. Just the other day, I know that in Comstock Township near Kalamazoo, a builder wanted to build smaller homes. And that was his way of trying to adjust for the market rate to try to make homes more affordable, and wanted to do smaller homes. The township did not allow that, but they went through a process to open that up to. So that's just a policy consideration. As it stands now, this is in your draft ordinance and would give people that ability to have reduced setbacks
Okay, for smaller homes.
for smaller homes.
Thank you.
Bigger homes, smaller lots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But any other questions concerning setbacks, side yards? Okay. Anybody have questions about missing middle? Duplexes, quads, triplex?
Just based on just a little bit.
When we're talking about missing middle, most of Ben Harbor is single family.
Right.
So we wanted to designate in the city where we would allow multifamily housing.
Okay, which takes me back to the question that I was asking about the smaller, we're talking about just specific areas of different zoning of mixed family, I mean,
Legend for
smaller
the,
families as opposed to larger families.
Multifamily housing.
Well, and one point I'd like to clarify too is that as it's situated now, even in the RN zone, you are able to have, of course, single unit homes. You could have duplexes. And then the question of whether or not you're going to allow even more would be subject to a special use permit. Certainly in the multi-family residential zone, the RM, you're allowed to have many more units there.
So the gold-colored ones are the ones that would allow the multifamily housing.
What are the white ones? That is a lot.
That's your standard single-family houses.
No, I'm talking about
The pale yellow,
The light yellow.
yellow is gonna make
Our community much more dense, and to my opinion, and I was born and raised here, that's a little bit much to me to have the density. We're only 4.5 miles wide, four ways. So I just have the problem with that right there. I'm saying it because obviously density is more people, and people bring problems. So I'm just having a problem with that being such a large area all over the city.
the yellow.
Yeah, the gold or yeah.
We are still putting houses on lots, so your lots would determine the size of the house that you could build.
Well, now if my memory serves me well, that we changed the ordinance to 60 feet and some years ago, and grandfathered in the normal 55 to 58. So I'm still looking at for a better future for Benton Harbor, and I don't want it to be so congested that we as humans can't function.
It's changeable, is it not? Yeah.
What-
Said
Why
that it
do we
was,
need to change something if
We
we don't
fix it
do
up front.
If we don't do it right the first time, we don't have to change it.
what were the white ones?
So if are you talking about this pale yellow?
Yeah.
So that is single-family residential.
Oh, the orange or yellow, wait a minute. No, multifamily. Multi is the dark.
so the gold,
Those are the ones you were talking about.
the gold is where there will be multifamily. The yellow,
Single family.
yes, ma'am.
When we say multifamily, if I may, when we say multifamily, are we talking units or are we talking more or less like, duplexes?
Talking about dwelling units, like, houses.
Okay. Single? No.
Well, so
It says
in the
multi.
RM, the multiple family residential is areas where you could have more than one dwelling unit on a lot. Now, as I said that before, the single family, which would become called neighborhood residential, would be the new name of that zoning, allows for single family homes as they've always been. Yeah.
I was trying to see what the white was. Single family. Okay. And it could be any size or just in a specific area.
There are size limitations, and minimums.
So
But
will we know where those limitations are?
I don't think we've changed them, so they are in the ordinance.
So every lot that's in the yellow still has the minimum lot size, it has the minimum setbacks, has all that criteria that anybody that built a brand-new home would still have to adhere to. What we were talking about earlier is whether or not for lots less than 50 feet in width, there's a provision to allow for a reduction of setbacks because the lot is smaller in and of itself. So you don't want to preclude someone from being able to try to build something there.
So I really don't see yellow. That's yellow. Believe me.
Can you blow that up a little bit?
Yeah, it's light yellow, but I can,
Okay, we're not going there.
Now, you see pink,
I see the yellow where the white is. That one. But over here, the white is white. Okay, but now I see pink. There's a yellow and a,
so if you look along Pavone, right, all along Pavone, that's yellow.
look at the bone. Okay, if y'all say so. I'm nearsighted.
My question is, how much more did the multifamily increase over what we had? Yeah, and I'm in percentage wise. We had almost none.
Okay, so I'm gonna just ask this question because my property is there. And it has 3 surrounding nice-sized lots. And I want to know what I will have the capability of building or to allow. And that's on the corner of Lake in Ohio.
could you go to the building types so they can see what the,
So one of the, right,
It's in the first ward.
No,
we need to find it on the map.
District.
District, yep, that's what the colors represent.
Now, who came up with that?
Okay, hold on, there you go. Well,
Lake in Ohio,
down just a little bit more.
right?
That's Lake in Ohio.
Right there. Over there where the lake lane is. Okay, right in there, right on that corner. That's, wait a minute.
These parcels?
Wait a minute. No. It's up from the Garfield.
That large
Wow.
Right, on one side you got,
residential.
and on the other side you got.
But there's a caveat that we need to put in that they have to ask for special use. And that's not always gonna happen.
Do you see right
Unless
there
they
up
can-
from Sherman? That right there is Colfax? Yeah. Okay, right there at Garfield? That corner right there of Lake and before it gets to Ohio? I'm right there at those 3 that's connected to the yellow.
What color are they?
Are you on the east side of Ohio?
Is it white and
Yeah.
single family?
They're single family that's next to a multifamily.
Okay.
So you could have an apartment building or you
No, it's not next to anything. I'm the only house on the.
It will be, you won't be.
It sure will be.
Chair,
Commissioner Bell is speaking.
in our last conversation about basically what you are mentioning, Commissioner Henry, was definitely prioritizing human development over capital and finding out a way to have more single-family homes in the lots that are empty versus the multifamily. And I think what we came up with collectively in the meeting was finding spaces where there was already a lot of density, there was already a lot of travel, versus bringing it inside to the neighborhoods. We felt like this was a healthy mix. However, if there is something that is bothering you that you don't see is fundamentally healthy for the community and for the longevity of the community, then I understand that as well. With more people does bring more crime, more transient residents who are not invested in the community. So I understand what you're saying. I think that just means we need to have a longer conversation of where these spaces need to be, because right now they don't exist, and we do need it. But we also do not want to affect the neighborhoods in a negative light.
For sure.
We just want to stay as far away from genocide as you want.
Okay.
There was a, if you could go back so we can see those areas that are that golder color also roughly correspond with transportation, as do the pink areas. Some of them have been enlarged, but in general, those pink areas are pink as neighborhood commercial because they've been neighborhood commercial for decades. They're expanded because the possibility for creating both a place for someone to do business and, because they're mixed use, a place for someone to live means that we have the potential benefit from both. But the other reason that we laid those gold, yellow places out was because the master plan, in the master plan discussions, people said that they wanted to see that kind of density along the top of the bluffs so that there would be nice views for people, and there were areas where those lots are just clear and nobody's doing anything with them. So the idea was that perhaps you could do some infill without messing up anything in the single area or overwhelming an existing single neighborhood or street. So it's hard to do from a map. So, if there are adjustments that have to be made because of something that we couldn't see on a map, that now is the time to figure those things out. But in general, that's why those are where they are.
The other point is people who are in the neighborhoods and people who are coming into the community, with it being close and adjacent to the neighborhood commercial, or it's giving them an opportunity for walkability as well within it. So we're not in silos. We're all able to kind of move around, support each other, especially with the Black Wall Street component that we have. If we are encouraging entrepreneurs to have businesses and finding lots for them, even if we are building multi-unit dwelling where people can live upstairs and they have a store or something downstairs, just trying to increase revenue and what that could look like, especially in representation in tax base. Yes.
I think another important thing was that we were the areas like multifamily and local commercial don't require you to only do that kind of development. It just makes it possible to do it as of right. So in the text is they say the devil's in the details. It's in the text is the explanation, and that's where the adjustments can take place. But in general, those areas where the neighborhood commercial are especially, we have lots of homes. And then there are also lots of vacant lots and homes that may not make it. So the idea was, if you wanted to build a house in those areas, you could build a house.
Correct.
You could keep your house. You could fix up an existing house. Those are not restricted from that area. It's just that if we're going to try to make those walkable neighborhoods, we need to have the amenities in them.
And we are not looking to have a lot of builders coming in and doing subdivisions. we're looking for more private individuals building houses. One of the things we were looking at is that a person who could afford to come up with the acquisition cost for an apartment building, for example, could live in one of the units and rent the other units out and let the tenants buy the property for them.
Exactly.
So the only thing they're looking at would be their acquisition costs. So that was another thing we were looking at, entrepreneurs. We're looking at the small builders.
Okay.
You got Youth Build, you got individuals who do a lot of rehabbing work throughout the city. So this gives them an opportunity to open up and expand their businesses.
I'm not sure. It might have been the Brownfield Authority Board, but I think they were here too. It was a couple that built that house up there. Yeah, they were here. Built that house up there on Foston. She's a developer. She's getting ready to retire from her job here, and they are very interested in helping to train. So, yeah.
I also, Chair, we also did ask for individuals who are looking to build, individuals who are looking to develop, to have a blueprint when they are coming into the community. So McKenna was very kind. I don't know if you can pull that up as well. So we also have schematics.
can.
So people are coming in. I think where we were having individuals a little lost before is there was no cohesion between the table and also what it was actually saying in the ordinance. So we wanted to eliminate that, and by just giving individuals, these are the schematics. This is what the city will accept. We think that will be easier for the design and easier for anyone who's looking to develop here, or if four friends get together and say, we can do this, if that makes sense. It's just easier to have, this is what the duplexes look like. This is what you can't go over. It has to be within this. And he is scrolling now, so you have a building type.
And that's what you were talking about,
Yeah.
you and Mr. Little, when I first came in, and it makes sense to have a choice for the homeowner or developer to already have what's acceptable to the city in place.
If a homeowner has a large enough lot, you can actually build what we call an accessory dwelling unit. And if you look at the diagram there, it's on a 20 by 24 foot space. So you could actually build one of these in your backyard. And if you really want to do it and you're concerned about parking, you can build a coach house. So you can park downstairs and then you have a living space upstairs. So when that grown kid of yours comes back home, you put him out in the garage. Believe me, I've been,
I like mine.
I didn't mean to open up that can of worms. But
Well, I love mine, but this just gives individuals who are looking to grow with the community an option and a viewpoint of how simple it can be and what the guidelines are. Yeah, but also making sure that we are increasing visibility, because we don't want individuals lost. If our job is to serve the community and make sure that we are giving them as many options as we can, I think this helps.
You know what I just heard you describe was the apartments that I helped to build out here at Kojic. I mean, literally, I did. And that's just the way some of them are kind of like made. If it was a garage portion downstairs with the upper, yeah.
the whole idea is to promote home ownership as opposed to rental units. Multifamily, of course, rental units, but if you notice, we didn't put a lot of the multifamily housing in the single-family areas. So we didn't change that. So you can maintain your neighborhoods, you can maintain your lot sizes. It just depends on where you want to live in the city. Also, the more compact lots lend themselves to workforce housing. You don't have to have the more luxurious family size. Young people would like to live near where they work. Developing the neighborhood nodes where you could have neighborhood businesses, along with the bus routes. You don't necessarily need to buy a car. So we were looking at the ways that we could put this together to get more density per acre. And if you're going to use your income taxes or property taxes to support property taxes to support the city services, you're going to have to get more people in the city. So where do you put them? And we didn't put them out in the residential neighborhoods. We put them downtown or close to the business centers where people worked.
And pray that they just want to be responsible homeowners and taking accountability for upkeeping their,
That's the point. That's the point. Historically, if you're looking for survival or longevity in the community, we have to support home ownership, and we have to protect our neighborhoods. That's essential. We've seen so many large developments come through Benton Harbor, and that historically has not helped the people who actually live here. So if we're looking to protect them, we are protecting the neighborhoods, as you can see. However, we're just thinking where there is high traffic, we have some availability for multifamily. And we can still work with all of these local organizations and who promote home ownership and make sure that we are continuing to build the human infrastructure here so we can have more homeowners in the city of Benton Harbor versus people actually moving out of the city into other areas adjacent to.
And keep in mind, we haven't had our public hearings yet. So we are waiting to hear from the community to hear what they have to say.
putting something together that's acceptable to
Right.
them, something that they cried about, something that they wanted, so we're going to see.
Right, so this is not the finished product, this is a draft. And we'll show them the draft, and they're gonna raise questions, and we'll be trying to attempt to answer and make necessary changes, same way we did the master plan. So, okay.
And that's one of the harder things too, if I could just touch on that. I mean, these documents are oftentimes, a snapshot of where you are in time. And then really, it's important to try to maintain them over the years. And it's a fluid document, so you might have a development or a change to your community in some way. Maybe for some reason there is a larger uptick in population, or there's some new business that comes to town that changes some of your thinking. So you have to be prepared to think, a few years down the line, where you might want to make some revisions or changes as well.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
The Michigan Planning Association in their newsletter, I don't know if it was the last one or one before, specifically refers to something called the Zoning Atlas, which is a national project that's underway. They've adopted the 3 communities in western Michigan to kind of launch the whole thing. And it's done by county, so they did Muskegon, Ottawa, and Kent. But one of the things that they specifically noted, they combed through all of the text of the ordinances in all the different communities, and they looked at all the zoning maps. And one of the things that really stuck out was how difficult it is for a small developer to come in and buy a lot and actually put together plans for anything other than a single family. In almost all of those communities, you have to spend money to get someone to do all that drawing, presentation to, a planning commission for a maybe. And so you're spending thousands of dollars up front for a project that may never go. That's why people have bypassed communities that have a lot of special use permits. And so in order to get the development for Missing Middle, we need to make the communities more friendly for incremental development, for smaller people to come in and build the 4 flat maybe, or a 3 or a 2 flat. And at the same time, others will benefit from that too. So, but mostly we want to get this, if we do that, we can eliminate some of those unnecessary costs.
So am I hearing, if I go up in an airplane and I'm looking down, I can see the landscape of something that looks like it's in sequence with, a community, the way that we see a lot of communities, for those of us that fly, to just see the beauty of the landscape of an area, just without a black roof over there and somebody got an orange, okay.
Bradley, was there anything else that you need us to discuss before we move on?
No, but I do want to say I really appreciate the conversation. It's really warming to my ears to hear you talking about things that will, I think, make a real positive difference for the community.
We'll get back with you shortly for the
Okay.
next subcommittee meeting.
Perfect.
We'll get together with you, and we'll
Okay.
all get together.
And I think we'll be doing a very deep dive at that meeting.
If there's no more questions, I would like to move on with the agenda. We have spent over an hour discussing this. I'd like to take advantage of our time here.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, Commissioner Marshall called. He was unable to attend today's meeting. Otherwise, we have attendance reported as you see it. Okay. Do you have any commission comments? Hearing none,
Just a
Commissioner
quick comment.
Hensel?
It's not on this agenda, but the clerk brought up the last time I saw her in person. A number of us need to update our training. And in order to be able to sit on the planning commission, you have to go through the specific 4 hours of training a year, and some of us don't have that. So has looked up some things. Somehow we didn't have it ready for this, but for the next agenda, hopefully there will be some options for training to get everybody up to speed again.
So there's more training other than the training I just had a couple of months ago that, okay, all right.
Other comments? I make a motion that we adjourn.
I second.
Motion is made and supported by Commissioner Bell. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Adams?
Yes.
Commissioner Archibald? Commissioner Bell?
Yes.
Commissioner Henry? Commissioner Hensel?
Yes?
Manager Little? And Chairman Reed?